There we go. Hello and welcome to the Ion Canon podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld Network for in-depth discussion on lore, High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away, especially the High Republic. My name is Matthew, and I am joined across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this fine week?
I am doing great.
Right on, right on. And as I said, High Republic Phase 2 is solidly underway. We go into all the reveals, especially the ones announced at New York Comic Con a few weeks ago. To help us break it all down, we've got a friend of the pod, still the reigning Star Wars Underworld Time Materials correspondent. Sure, I'm the religion correspondent, so you can be the Time Materials correspondent.
Fair enough.
We got Chris Abbott, Starrapter, the man who was at New York Comic Con. So how you doing, Chris? Welcome back to Ion Canon.
Hi, Matthew. Hi, Joel. Oh, man, I always love being on this podcast. This podcast is basically what I do on my own channel, and I get to talk to others about it. So I'm always, really always looking forward to all this. We got a lot to break down. Yes, I was the man in the room. I was at New York Comic Con 2022, as I am every year since like 2015. I haven't missed a beat. We got a lot of good stuff to get into between High Republic and a Lucasfilm Publishing panel, and just a couple cool little things just about the convention. I'll share for everybody out there as well.
Sweet. Yeah, I got outer room transmissions, and we'll definitely do the more plugs at the end. But yeah, a lot of the similar kindred podcasts here going on. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Ion Canon Pod. I also want to mention the Tractor Beam. You can get that on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, along with all of our full length podcast episodes. Upload the full length podcast episodes right after we record. Tractor Beam, my weekly comic book reviews, usually Thursday or Friday night. Get to those usually Friday. Let's be honest. So this past week had ongoing Star Wars ongoing number 28 by Charles Soule, High Republic number 1. More on that in a second, and the Visions one-shot prequel to the that Ronin episode in Visions was pretty interesting. And connected to the Visions novel. Also, want to mention a few more things. There are a few more ways you can connect with us. You can support us. Patreon is a sketch fest. So we're definitely got YouTube memberships here on the Star Wars Underworld podcast network, Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. You can figure that out. And also super chats. We got that capability as well. Joel, I'm going to turn this to you. I've never done a super chat in my life. Very quickly, can you help us explain to us how you do a super chat and how does one go about that?
Yes. So if you look at the comment section in the chat room, to your bottom right corner, gotta remember here, you'll see a little money sign. You click on that, it'll say sticker or super chat, and depending on the amount, $2, $5, you can put in a certain amount of characters to send us a message, and it will have like a little highlight, and maybe we'll read it.
Yeah,
well, we probably will.
We definitely will, especially if you give the channel some money. We'll definitely read it. Another, and it shows up in these bright colors, so it's hard to miss. But another way to get in touch with us, to keep in contact with us, along with social media, Twitter and Instagram, and YouTube comments generally, and super chats. Discord. We are the Star Wars Underworld network is on Discord. Joel and I are pretty active in it. Chris, you're in it a little bit, especially when we tag you. So the link, I believe, Joel, were you able to get the link in just down below in the description? If not, then we will make sure it's available. Yeah, and so just click that link. It's an invite to our Discord channel.
Hopefully, and then up-to-date invite.
Yeah, it was from yesterday, so it's still good for about another 6 days or so as of recording. It was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. So it's good until the end of the week. Let's just say that. And then if you want in after that, or if the link doesn't work, or if you want in, you want to send you a new link, DM us on Twitter, Instagram, or comment on the YouTube channel. We'll get that to you. Either Joel or our good friend Ben, the Star Wars guy. Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy. He might notice it as well, because he's the man in charge of all the socials here at the Star Wars Underworld Network. Okay, that's it for plugs. We got a lot to get through, so let's just very quickly. Don't have to be too quickly. We're going to talk. This is the second of third times we're going to talk about High Republic number 1. Because Chris, you wanted to mention that, as well as the insider short story Tales of Enlightenment. I haven't read Tales of Enlightenment yet. My insider issue isn't in yet, so if you could keep spoilers away from that. But spoiler away on High Republic #1 because I read it, and Joel, I presume you're not too worried about spoilers. Yeah, so go for it, Chris. Take the stage.
Okay, so yeah, the High Republic issue #1. So to set the stage for everybody that people watching this podcast, I would assume kind of know where Phase 2 starts. It's like the prequels. Phase 2 is technically before Light of the Jedi, before Starlight Beacon and all that. So we are in this new age of the Republic, and we are following this character of Vildar Mack, who is a Jedi that is going to Jeddah for the first time. So it's pretty neat because we're actually like looking through the lens of him as the way to get into Jeddah in this brand new era of Star Wars. And he goes down there and he's just trying to help out with an issue with people stealing artifacts. And that might come up later in this discussion at some point, Force artifacts. And as he's there on the streets, he's quickly noticing that, hey, the Jedi aren't the end all be all. They are not just the prime leaders of the Force at this point. There's all these other sects and beliefs, and they're called the Convocation of the Force. So right from the get-go, you see Vildar Mack. He's being welcomed by a Padawan. Forget her name, actually. I'm sure I won't pretty soon.
Look that up right now. keep going.
Yeah, really cool Twi'lek design, a red Twi'lek design. Really, really sweet because we don't see many of those unless you're Darth Talon. But anyway, so we get to see we get to see like already like these guys are butting heads like with their Force beliefs. They look at Vildar Mack and it's interesting. There's already animosity toward the Jedi at this point in the timeline, 400 years before Rogue One. So we get all this going on, and eventually, do you want me to like spoil the big like crux of the whole thing with the fate of Vildar?
I'm good with it. Joel, speak now or forever hold your peace. I mean, I think we're gonna spoil. I'm gonna spoil it in the comments further down. So, yeah, go for it.
Okay, so basically, the crux of what sets up the story to instantly engage any reader is we get Vildar Mack. There's a thief on the street that pickpockets somebody. Vildar Mack chases him, and throughout the course of this issue, it comes back to this thief, and the thief actually possesses really good Force reflexes, and they have said to have trained and all this kind of thing. And even with this one way that they're able to use the Force by touching the chest of Vildar Mack to stop his heart, and the issue basically ends. Like he puts his hand up like this and up against his chest, and Vildar Mack just ceases to exist. He just falls over dead. And that's what happened.
Yeah. The main character dies in the first issue.
And
spoiler alert. I should have put up
there's a point A and there's a backup story. I got clarification from Fan Scott on Twitter. You gotta love Fan Scott because he will interact with you. If you tag him, he'll answer questions. I was like, is this our only backup story? And he's like pretty much like, yeah. So there's another backup story that's setting up the world building of Jeddah. And it's going into the Convocation of the Force, which is like the not the Guardians of the Wills, but it's the Disciples of the Wills. You got all these other peoples of the Force, and they all meet together. These are like the big shots of each one of these organizations, and there's bickering. You get to see this, like there's bickering, there's differences of beliefs that are happening to the point where they expect that this one person's the race or something is automatically like Darksiders. Like so they see this person coming in and they're like, they're a Darksider. We gotta get rid of them fast. And the person, just because they're from that kind of people, does not instantly make them a dark side user. And they're trying to see what's going on with all these other Force, because the whole point of the Convocation of the Force is you're trying to share their beliefs. People are open. They're like, okay, so you look at the Force this way. I look at the Force this way. Like I feel like the Convocation of the Force is sort of like back in the ancient Greek times, where you have like all these philosophers that are like sitting around in the whatever, not the Colosseum, but whatever, just like, I believe this. And so that's the idea of the Jeddah. And there's some volatile things happening between some of these Force sects. And by the end of this, we see a character coming in to wanting to join from the Path of the Open Hand. And that will connect to the Path of Deceit novel. That I don't know if we're going to talk about that at all tonight, but there's some interesting things that happen in that one that connects right to this one. So
I'll just say quickly, like ancient Greece, it sounds like the real world contemporary world to me, especially. I mean, Jeddah is Jerusalem. Let's not mince words. And the way different religions just clash in that city. Clearly, we saw it in Rogue One. We see it already in issue number 1 of High Republic. Kevin Scott, who has studied comparative religion and understands just the real world dynamics of pluralism and the struggle for pluralism, the struggle to be peaceable amidst different wildly different worldviews. And whenever he's done that, whenever he's hit on, especially going back to Dooku Jedi Lost, and even into now, and everything in phase 1, he's it's felt grounded and real and familiar to what I know from the real world, both the promises and the challenges of engaging difference on such deeply held things. So I'm all about this convocation. I'm going to need a whole episode once we learn more, just a whole EOC episode on that. So looking forward to that. I admit I completely forgot about the B story because I was so taken with Vildar's death. I was like, like to me that was like, oh right. I mean, I read the B story. I remember what happens, but like, oh right, there's a B story. It's only since Wednesday.
But Matthew, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like I've seen all these other covers of the High Republic phase 2 that have Vildar on the cover. And the way they word it, the way that, and by the way, the whole comic for the part A, I'll call it, with Vildar's death, is narrated. We don't know who the narrator is until the very end. And I was listening to your tractor beam as well before we recorded this tonight. And you were saying like you got this narrator, and it's pretty cool how they do it in the story because you don't know who the narrator is until the very end. And it happened to be the thief that kills Vildar the whole time. But the way the thief words his death reminds, like, is he gonna get resurrected or something? Because he seems like your death is the start of your life now, or something like to that effect. Where I'm like, how are you gonna have the main character dying in the first freaking comic book? Like when you have covers of it, unless they're going back in time or something,
and all the marketing and everything, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he goes back in time. I mean, that's Kevin Scott giving us these questions to ask, so it means we got to keep reading, right?
And another thing I'd even mention is the whole thing with Kefik. So he is the same species as Quinlan Voss, and you got this weird Santa Claus looking evil dude that is like has a bunch of corpses around his feet, and it's just like it's basically kind of like hinted at that this person kills his parents, and then he was taken as a Jedi at 4 years old, and then he sees a flashback. Not a flashback. He sees one of these other people on Jeddah streets. And has like a flashback, and it turns out this person's like a sorcerer of Tund, which I don't know anything. I don't know if that's a Legends reference or something.
I don't know. But does that sound familiar at all? Or nope. Okay, so I guess not. I think it's brand new.
That was interesting because I'm like, oh my gosh, like what kind of character is this evil dude? Are they a part like of the Sith? Like what's going on here?
So I mean, well, can't necessarily be the Sith because they haven't been revealed yet, but who knows? I got to move on. We do have plenty to cover. We're trying to keep this the episode to 90 minutes as best we can, maybe, but we'll see. I got to go to bed eventually. Kevin Scott's Plot and Geekery, Comrade in Arms from back in the day. George Mann, Tales of Enlightenment. You want to mention that again, if you can do that without spoiling anything, just very quickly. 1 minute or so. Thoughts on that story?
Okay, Tales of Enlightenment goes right in effect with the Marvel Comics. We have this entire short stories and insiders taking place on Jeddah. You have this great framework of a story where you have this, I believe the character's name is Keth. He works at the Temple of Kyber, which is the big temple where we see Chirrut and Baze working as Guardians of the Wills, all that good stuff. There is a bar that's called Enlightenment, hence the name. So the idea is Keth works hard, but he goes out and he drinks maybe once or twice a week. And as he's sitting there, he knows the bar owner, and you get to know all these characters. And that's the framework of the story, because what's happening is you're getting, for instance, like the first story revolves around a prospector. So the prospector walks into the bar, gets a beer or whatever, a drink, and goes and tells you the story. And people crowd around. It's like that classic like storytelling trope. It's like, okay, let me tell you a story, and it goes back in time kind of thing. So the first story revolves around this prospector and basically how she comes into contact with the Jedi and goes to this planet and has these really cool adventures.
Yeah.
So hopefully, but this basically what I said in my like real recap videos I do on my channel is like this story here, like these like little stories feel like the promise of the High Republic from the get-go, which was like, let's go out into the Outer Rim and explore places that have been undiscovered and trying to see how we can make connections with the Republic. So like these whole stories here are right up my alley because this is what I was really hoping for from phase 1, but now we're getting it in phase 2.
That sounds great. That sounds exciting. Again, whenever my insider issue comes in, I'll love it. I mean, I'm loving everything to do with Jeddah at all. And yeah, it's good. Smart to use a framing reference. Okay, I'm gonna call a bit of an audible and not do this because Joel and I and Doc and our new friend Red Leader spent 2 hours on Doc's channel talking about that. And Chris, I'm sure you've spent lots of time talking about Andor. So if you want to, and Joel, I'll post a link to Doc's video sometime tomorrow, and then check out Outer Rim Transmissions on Starrapter's channel for that. So because we got a lot to go through. So one thing I will say, Joel, you haven't spoken a lot, so we'll just do your This Week in Star Wars, and then I'll ask Chris about how New York Comic Con was. But go for it, Joel.
So strangely, my week of Star Wars has been inspired not by Star Wars, but by Rings of Power of all things. I won't spoil it. Don't get too deep into that. But I think if you've seen it, you probably know where this came from. I was thinking about like, what if George had made the prequel today? If 80-year-old George Lucas had the energy to make the prequels in the day and age. Oh boy, I just worry about his health. It's hard making movies. And I was thinking to myself, how would they have handled the Palpatine Sidious reveal? And I think about this, and I'm sure if you've seen Rings of Power, you know why I'm asking this.
His full name is Sauron. Who's Sauron? Anyway, I won't say who, but keep going. I know where you're going with this.
I was thinking about this because they do play up the mystery of Palpatine Sidious until the third movie. But the thing is, the interesting thing is, if you have just watched the original trilogy, you just watched the movies, they never say the Emperor's name. It's just the Emperor. But if you know your expanded universe history, your toy history, your Kenner packaging at the back of the box, the name Palpatine was there from the get-go. Emperor Palpatine. Even the A New Hope novelization, Palpatine was the president of the Republic, and then he became the Emperor. And I kind of wonder in today's social media age, a bunch of people will either Wikipedia it up or on Twitter, it's like, the Palpatine, that's the Emperor. Here's the Kenner box that explains it. And sort of like, well, that mystery kind of went away.
That person would have been Adam Christopher. Just putting it out there.
But my point is, because we didn't have, obviously we had Jedi Council forums and places like that, but social media was not the thing it was in 1999, even to 2005. That kind of, here's the box that proves it. We were kind of able to keep that mystery going for 2 movies. Even going as far as like Sidious is actually a clone of Palpatine, and the clone will take over. There were a lot of weird back and forth back then instead of just the same person. I didn't know at the time either, but I was 5. I didn't know any better. I didn't even realize it was the same actor. So I kind of just was thinking, if the prequels had been made today, would they have not even gone for a mystery? I just kind of am curious. Or would George have played it straight anyway and kind of just deal with the consequences? So it's just kind of an interesting thought. Because
sorry, no, keep going. I was just going to say that while you take your swig there. I mean, was it really a mystery? I mean, I never thought it was a mystery.
I mean, they don't. People, sorry, maybe not. They don't play it like a mystery, but sure is. We kind of all, but like, how many people I do wonder knew and didn't know at the same time? Like,
Schrodinger's Sith.
Exactly. But it's sort of like, if Rings of Power had, they didn't do this, so I guess I can, this small spoiler, if they had a guy called, I'm Anatar, I'm going to help you elves, Tolkien fans on Twitter, but like, this is Anatar, because we all know who Anatar is. And it's sort of like, because of that kind of, any sort of tension just, well, you can't really string out this tension of, here's nice Anatar helping with these rings. Like, here's kindly Chancellor Palpatine helping Anakin. and kind of like then secretly there's the Sidious guy. But are they the same person? I don't know. I'm just kind of curious, like, especially in today's day and age. So it's all kind of interesting to think about.
I mean, I feel like they would have just locked that down tight. Like they would have been able to do something or obfuscate or be all, like do misdirect or something with or the story would have had to gone in a different direction. I don't know. Chris, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
that
because
question?
it's hard because like you're seeing Palpatine grooming Anakin. So it's like, who else gets this close to Anakin that's older than him? You know, it's kind of hard to do that in this sense because such a major plot line revolves around the relationship between Anakin and Palpatine in the early years.
Yeah.
I guess my point was my last point was like, for 2 out of 3 movies, they treated Sidious and Palpatine as separate characters. Even the Clone Wars kind of still did it after Revenge of the Sith.
I mean, even Rebels does it for a second.
So it's just kind of interesting. Like, I wonder if that kind of unofficial separation of Sidious Palpatine would have been, they would have gone with that anyway, or would they just kind of like, now here's Palpatine kind of doing this thing. It's been more overt.
Yeah. You never know. Well, interesting question. I mean, that does. I mean, to say that the way they did Sauron in Rings of Power, they did it perfectly. Get to this time, to different time, at a different time. I thought that was perfect. So
it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it was, and it was incredibly Tolkien-esque. That's the irony of that, though. It's precisely what Tolkien would have done. Given his philosophy and beliefs and whatnot. Speaking of religions, anyways, before we finally get to the specifics of New York Comic Con reveals, Chris, we got you on here. You were the man in the room where it happens. To Hamilton, you're in. Yeah, I won't dox you, but you're. Yeah, you've been to New York. You've been, I don't know if you've seen the musical Hamilton, but anyway, how was New York Comic Con? I know you posted a cosplay video. You did a bunch of stuff there. How was it overall? How does it compare to Celebration, and how is it post the circumstances?
It's fantastic. So yeah, comparing it comparing it to last year, it was definitely scaled down. There was a lot less big studios there last year, and it seemed like this year, for the most part, things have gotten back to normal. DC had a presence, Marvel had a presence, a lot of the big studios, Amazon and Netflix and HBO Max, like everybody was there. And how it compares is, whereas Celebration is hyper focused on Star Wars, and a little bit of Indiana Jones, we had we have a smorgasbord of every type of fandom imaginable. So that's always so much fun because you can go cosplay as different people every single day. You're gonna or whatever. You're gonna go hang out different meetups every single day. But it is like a microcosm of Star Wars Celebration. And I'll start off by saying this: I always enjoy going to the Star Wars meetup. These guys called the Three Mandalorians on Facebook have had this thing going for this will be the 3rd year, I think, this time. Where we meet up in this one area at 2:00 on every Saturday at the convention every year. And this year we had more people than ever. And it was a huge Mandalorian presence. There was probably 30, 40 Mandalorian cosplayers. And it's just a fantastic time because, like, I feel like I'm in Celebration again because I'm walking up. I was wearing my Cal Kestis with my BD1. And everybody was just chit-chatting. There was like 2 or 3 other Cal Kestis, and we were just like all in a circle, like talking to each other, like, oh, that part of your costume is cool, or like, how'd you do that droid, or like whatever. So it's like, oh my gosh, like you feel like you're Star Wars Celebration. And you got the Mandalorian March. I think I shared that on my personal Facebook earlier today. So just the Mandalorian March of all these guys going through. So that's always fun. Even like spilling out of the convention. I was going to get a slice of pizza at night after the con was over, as you do, because it's New York City. And of course, I was, Jedi Luke Skywalker that day on that Friday, and I had my lightsaber, and I was waiting to get my pizza because I was like, oh, I like the lightsaber. I really like Luke's lightsaber. And the next thing you know, we were talking about Andor and stuff. Like 10 minutes later, like, okay, like I have to actually eat this pizza because it's getting cold at this point.
Like just strangers coming up to you from the con, or
Yeah, so that's
Nice.
always a highlight. It's just like you're
Yeah.
chit-chatting in the middle of this huge metropolitan area, and you still find these fans like a couple blocks from the convention center.
Yeah.
And but yeah, getting into the actual part of it, I went to the panel, High Republic panel, and I gotta credit Lucasfilm, man, because New York Comic Con, I feel, is like where they focus so much on the publishing. Obviously, they had two
Mhm.
full-fledged panels. I was super hyped that they even had a High Republic panel, because I think me and you, Matthew, were talking about this in
Yeah.
Celebration. The fact that they even had we were flabbergasted that they had their own panel at Celebration,
Right.
which is a Star Wars centric thing. Now imagine, okay, they're taking it to the next level. They're having a High Republic like microcosm Star Wars panel at
Mhm.
this humongous like nation converging panel in New York Comic Con. Was like, holy crap, and they filled that whole room up. Like there was no empty chairs, max capacity. It wasn't the biggest room, but it definitely could fit probably like 200 people in there or something like that.
Mhm.
But it was neat because it's great seeing how far publishing really gets its grips into people. I was waiting in line, and a guy in front of me was like, we were chit-chatting a little bit about High Republic, and he just pulls out like all these original like drafts of High Republic issue number 1.
Wow.
Aria and Adito signed all these things.
Nice.
He bought it because he was there. Aria Adito was there, so he
Mhm.
had like the big like mega size like
That's sweet.
scripts that I don't know if they had was original artwork or whatever, but it was freaking
Mhm.
amazing. Like looking at that, just the line work and everything.
Yeah.
But the panel itself was great because I did not expect them to bring out the big guns. Like they brought out all of
Well,
phase
they were
1
all there.
authors,
Yeah, they were all there.
all of phase 2,
Yeah.
and then Kristen Baver, then Arya and Adito that flew in from like
Indonesia, I
forget-
think.
Indonesia or
Yeah.
Malaysia or something like that out there. So he came all the way there. He was showing off like the Keith Trennis figure. They revealed like all this
Yeah.
stuff. I was like, what in the world? Like this is like something worth coming out here
Yeah.
for. Like this is more than I expected. They didn't even have enough chairs. Like they had to like play musical chairs to get like
Mhm.
certain people up there because there was like over 10 people on this
Right.
on the stage, you know.
That's funny. That Keith Trennis figure, I'm still like, he made it with his friends. Like
Yeah.
Hasbro doesn't even know what High Republic is, so I won't go there. But yeah, it just goes to show how, you know, this for a lot of folks like me, this is the best thing in Star Wars right now. And you know, I mean, I know that's not a universal opinion, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people love Andor. A lot of people, I mean, I love Andor, of course, but you know, this all the streaming shows, but man, High Republic and all these reveals, it feels like you know, phase 1 was fantastic, blew my mind. I think phase 2 is going to be better. Call me nuts. I think phase 2 is going to be better than phase 1. I'm on the internet calling it right now. Let's dive into it. So full disclosure, a lot of my notes here are word for word copy and paste from the StarWars.com article that was posted up. I'm going to actually click on this, see if they have an author credit here. Kristen Baver wrote this article. Okay, so thank you, Kristen, for helping us out here. Speaking of someone who does respond on social media, so let her know I had pre-ordered her book, her real world book.
I met her. Actually, I walked out of the convention center. Real quick aside here.
Yeah.
I walk out of the convention center. I see a guy with a mask on. I
Yeah.
was like, "Are you Adam Christopher?" And he's
Right.
like, "Yep." And I was like
Nice.
talking to him for a good 5 minutes
Mhm.
about Shadow of the Sith.
Nice.
And he was like, and then I looked over because it was after the panel
Yeah.
got out. So
Yeah.
the panel got out, and then all the authors were just kind of hanging out
Mhm.
like outside of the room. So I went to him, said hi. Then I walked by, and Kristen Baber looks at me and looks at the BD1 on my shoulder.
Nice.
Like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, thanks. I was like, you know, like the typical like stupid fan thing, like, oh, I really enjoy your show. Like I
Yeah.
watch it every week. And then it was like a really quick thing, and I was like, oh, that was sort of awkward. Let me get out of here.
Yeah, fair enough. She seems like a wonderful person.
She's
seems
like
wonderful human being.
100% of
Very
what you would
nice.
expect her to see on her
Yeah.
camera. That's how she is
Yeah.
in person. So
So-
from what I gathered.
And she also, because Christina Ariel is, of course, taking care of a little human being that she made, was on mat leave, so on parental leave. So Kristen Baver also took over the High Republic show this past week. So a little bit of reveals from that coming up. Chris, I'm glad you're here because your tweet thread, and there were other live tweet threads that I'm supplementing with from Kristen's article. But yeah, let's dig right into it. and I got lots of images, by the way, from that StarWars.com article. This is going to be a bit of a slideshow. Hope you enjoy the looking at these wonderful images better than our mugs. Anyways, speaking of image books, yeah, let's keep talking. Yeah, I can speak words, I promise. As promised, a third time we're talking about Marvel's High Republic run by Kevin Scott and Ario Anindito. And yeah, Chris, as you mentioned, Ario had some time in the spotlight. He talked about his process. He talked about some of this interior art. I'll get that other way. This interior art from Jeddah, and yeah, like you mentioned, just how yeah. Well, you got the tweet from Kevin saying the whole run of Phase 2 is going to be of the comic here is going to be on Jeddah. Of course, George Mann's story, Insider story, is also set on Jeddah, and I gather the rest of the Insider short fiction is also going to be on Jeddah. But yeah, so I'll list a few things. You just, again, great to see Ario Anindito get some time in the spotlight. He actually follows us. He's the only creative who follows us on Twitter. Thanks to Tractor Beam and all the love that I've been able to show to his work. Yeah, so again, great way to set the scene here. And this is just the pencils. Obviously, it's in color in the actual comic.
Yeah.
Then speaking of color and speaking of characters, so this is Todd Knox variant for issue number 5, and that is the unnamed thief. Although
He
Chris,
looks like an X-Men character.
He looks like an X-Men. He looks like yeah. Oh, what's his name? The German Catholic guy. But
yeah,
blue.
from
the Nightcrawler
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
But
So
less
that's pretty.
blue.
Yeah, it's more purple.
Yeah.
And interesting to see the building designs here. I guess that's still Jeddah, but it looks a little more contemporary there. And Chris, in your tweet thread, you said he was named Tay Sirik. Is that right? Did I hear that right? Did you hear that right?
Oh, I believe so. Now I have to actually look back at that tweet in reference to what I said.
And
I would guess so. What's the let me see what the context of that was.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many tweets. I'll have to confirm that later. But we'll say it's a possibility, I guess.
So,
but yeah.
You said you're gonna mention something else about.
Oh no, I wanted to mention before we get much further. Looking at these amazing images, right? Like this is a precedent set for the first time in Star Wars. Like a lot of times we're reading these novels, and we don't get the images, but the fact that Aria Anindito is literally creating Star Wars, like new Star Wars. Like this is a new era. It's not already an original trilogy where he has things to pull from. Yeah, I guess he could. They did get like a lot of stuff from the Rogue One concept art stuff, but like it's freaking cool. This is one of the reasons why I love the High Republic, is that I could read a novel and then I could like look at the characters showing up in the comic books and be like, this is what they look like. Yeah, for me, it seems like such a small thing, but in reality, it's so cool to actually conceptualize these characters and see them in action and see them on the page. And it's this whole process of the story group and keeping everything together, and the High Republic architects keeping everything together, and then the artists are kind of following that trend and being along for that whole just collaboration. Is just such a cool thing. So I wanted to give the credit where credit is due for all the artists that are involved with the High Republic. Like you said, I can't wait for there's a lot of behind the scenes. I think there's like 3 or 4 like different behind the scenes books coming out that are just like just about the artwork and stuff, which I can't cool.
That's right. The Kristen Maver is doing the art of, I believe, and then for Phase 1 and telling the real world story behind it with COVID and everything. I mean, looking at this character, Tay Sirik, I mean, Joel, I'll throw this to you, and if you have any just the thoughts on the top of your head, knowing what he ends up doing at the end of issue number 1, what do you think of this character? Where do you think this book might be going? Is there any kind of precedent in Legends for Jedi characters living on after death, but not necessarily Force ghosts.
Trying to think. I don't think so. Most
Right.
Jedi characters live on after death or Force ghosts.
That's true. That's fair.
Like,
But yeah, I mean, what do you think of that thing we just spoiled for you, and this taste here, his design and his power to kill a Jedi just by that sound effect.
I mean, it's very comic booky. Not gonna lie, kind of
Yeah.
superpowery. I mean, looks like an X-Men character. It looks more like a mutant, so it's like I don't know. Just kind of get like, oh, this is Star Wars X-Men.
This
the
is a
vibe I
new
get.
species, I think.
Interesting. Okay.
Star Wars. I've never seen this species in Star Wars before, unless it's Legends.
Nope,
And
I don't think so.
Cavan, by the way, loves Legends. Like he pulls stuff. I think the Rising Storm he introduced like I don't know exactly how many things, but it was like every other page. I feel like I was going on Wikipedia and saying, "Oh, this was in Legends. This was in Legends." Like all these references. So I would not be surprised if this is a Legend species he's bringing back.
Yeah,
Maybe.
possible. I mean, he brought back the Leppy, and what was his name? The that rebel fighter. Why am I blanking on his name?
Wait, Jackson?
Yeah, Jackson. So you never know, right? I'm surprised he hasn't thrown more of that species in High Republic, especially. Yeah, and then coming back, I just mentioned this. All this Jeddah, everything with the convocation, which I mentioned on Tractor Beam, and I mentioned before, it sounds like real world tensions, but also, there are like the World Council of Churches and kind of parliaments of religions, and I mean, it'd be interesting to see if they play nice, but under the surface, there's a lot of maneuvering going on. It's like the UN in that way too. So that's all. I mean, we've spoken lots about this run, High Republic, by Kevin Scott. I guess maybe one last question for you, Kristen. What was it like seeing Ario in the room? Well, I guess two questions: seeing Ario in the room, and then if either of you have any last thoughts before we move on.
Oh yeah, like I said, it's really cool because I was making a side this kind of earlier about it's very easy for comic books. Like I feel like myself included, like we look at the comic books, we're like, oh, that comic book is from Charles Soule, or that comic book is from Ethan Sachs, or that comic book is from Mark Guggenheim. But I mean, I fall subject to this. Sometimes you don't give credit to the authors or the artists. Right. Like the artists aren't like, you're not saying this one's by Giuseppe Cavancoli, Darth Vader's run. You're saying Charles Soule. So it's great to like have Lucasfilm actually acknowledge these artists, to bring them on stage. The guy came halfway across the world to be appreciated and to show that the respect of they are there. But yeah, no, the comic is great so far. I'm loving it. It's a very big departure from, like, if you compare this to issue 1 of the High Republic, the first volume, right? It's like Keeve Trennis like with Skier, and they're just like, she becomes a Jedi Knight. So that's a huge moment, which is very powerful. And now we have a very powerful somebody dying. So either way, I'm engaged. I'm very excited.
And I mean, on the High Republic show, I forget who was on that council, that little panel they had. One of the participants made a contrast between Keeve and this Padawan, this over talking, very nervous Twi'lek Padawan, who I mean, maybe she's kind of closer to Vern in this way, that she thinks she's all that, and in some ways she is, but she's going to quickly learn that she isn't. Whereas Keeve actually is all that and doesn't think she is. So then that's her journey to actually standing up to Avar at the end of that run. So we'll see. I mean, again, that's another thing with High Republic. There's lots of room for young adult characters to grow in this. Okay, let's move on to, where are we here? The adult novels. And in this so we did get a look at the Path of Vengeance cover there.
That's
last
maybe an adult novel.
Yeah, I believe it's an adult. Oh, that's the adult novel. Okay, never mind.
Oh, good.
Calling an audible.
You're looking about Cataclysm.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. What I did want to talk about was Cataclysm. For some reason, I thought, because this is here. I'm going to explain this, justify myself. It's so dark, and it's by Kevin Scott. I'm used to that, but it's so dark. Anyway, it does have Marta there. So okay, Cataclysm by this is an adult novel by Lydia Kang. Yeah, we got this for the look of this cover. So that is Axel Greylark. That is the son of the Chancellor. I forget her name. Chancellor Greylark. So he's got a blaster and he's got a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't quite know what planet that is in the background there, but looks kind of like Naboo. Oh, I don't know. Gonna
The old Coruscant. When it was
you know, it
nicer.
could just be Coruscant. Yeah, you never know. But yeah, so Joel, I'll throw this to you because we were tweeting about Jedi Chancellors a while back, and this isn't the Chancellor. This is the son of the Chancellor. Is this kind of the next best thing? The closest thing?
I mean, I guess. I mean, there's nothing that stops a chancellor from having a kid and that kid joining the Jedi Order and just kind of like there were senators who had Jedi children, but they didn't really have much communication with them because the attachment thing. So I mean, depends on how close he is with the mother. If he's not like, oh, we're just blood related, but that's about it. The Jedi are my family, as most of them would be like. So yeah, I guess it's kind of the next best thing, and I'm sure though being the blood descendant of the Chancellor causes complications.
True. I mean, we don't fully know if he is a Jedi. Just by holding a lightsaber doesn't necessarily mean you're a Jedi. Like Ty Yorick had left the Order. I mean, like Finn, we didn't know he was Force sensitive yet, but
I mean, Han Solo held a lightsaber, and Grievous can hold a lightsaber. So
yeah. So, but it may be. I mean, that is interesting. That is an interesting thing of what if he was taken to the temple, but what if everyone knows that he's the son of, I guess, when the time he's born, maybe still a prominent local politician who rises to the highest office in the land. Chris, what do you think of this character Axel Greylark having a civilized lightsaber and an incredibly uncivilized blaster at the same time?
Yeah, so this character, I believe, is going to be introduced in next month's adult novel from Zarata Cordova, which is going to be the Convergence, right?
Yeah, Convergence. Yeah,
Convergence. So he's going to be introduced as, I believe, one of the main characters alongside of a Jedi Knight, a female Jedi Knight, and somebody else. I think they said there was going to be 3 different characters in that one. Right. So I guess this is a continuation of that. And what was interesting, just giving a whole outlook of Phase 2, and it's clearly evident this is a little bit smaller scale than Phase 1. It was not as large of an array of characters. They did want to keep it more, and this is from the words of the authors at the panel, they wanted to keep it more self-contained per each medium. So, for instance, if you're following along with Quest of the Hidden Temple, you're going to be following along with the likes of the character Rooper, who is the young Jedi there. And then you'll get to see her when I guess we're going to look at this later, the Quest for Planet X. Yeah, she's on the cover for that. Yeah. And then for Path of Deceit, you got Marta, and we've seen that real quick flash you put on the screen of the Path of Vengeance. There she is. So what we're seeing is if you're just sticking with either the novels, the young adult books, or the middle grade, you're going to be able to see those characters in both those stories because they're going to basically have 2 waves worth of content. Also, there's 2 major flashpoints that happen in Phase 2. From what I gathered, is you're going to have the Battle of Jeddah, which is cool because it's going to be audio drama. Right. And then this big foreshadowed event that's been talked about quite a bit in Phase 1 about this thing that happens on Dona. So I'm guessing that's what the Cataclysm is basically referencing, is there's going to be this huge conflict happening there. Because there was and I don't want to go too far off the kilter here, but there is a synopsis for the Edge of Balance precedent with Arkoff that came out today. Somebody linked that. And that also links into the Battle of Dana, or whatever happens on Dana. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does.
Battle. So there's a lot of things that are a lot more focused in this phase, it seems like. But as far as him having the lightsaber, I feel like this is kind of like a misdirect. I feel like he's just holding the lightsaber for somebody else at this point, because why would you have the blaster? Yeah, I think it's all right, we're gonna get this character. People are gonna buy this. He's got a purple blade lightsaber. People love Mace Windu, his purple lightsaber. Let's give this guy. I don't know.
Yeah, Joel, tell us how much you love what Chris was just talking about.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think trying to keep the story plots of the young adult, and junior novels more separated is, first of all, good idea. I like the idea
Yeah.
of like the young adult deals with the mother and row girls and elbow and
Kevmo and
Yep.
Kevmo, and the adult novels deal with that guy,
yeah,
this guy, whoever
Axel Grayler. Yeah.
Axel Grayler, because I think Phase One had too much interconnectivity, and it just kind of made things even more confusing. It's like,
Hmm.
wait, I gotta read the comic now to get this
Yep.
character, and then wait, the Dragon Gear didn't do anything in the books, and now I gotta read the comic to figure out what's going on here. It's like, I don't have time for that. I just want to, or I don't
Yeah.
have the money for that. It's too much. Like, keep it organized. Like, young adults should be following one storyline. Adults should follow another, and then junior can follow another. The comic can follow another. Maybe they all make a good piece of the puzzle, but you don't need the whole puzzle. It's weird because it's the puzzle. But the point is,
Hmm.
it's a little too jumping around. It's like, again, you ended Phase One with a comic book. That's just weird to me. You
Yeah.
started with this big novel, and you ended with this 2-issue comic. That's technically the ending, and that probably most people don't know about because they don't follow the comics, or they don't want to read the comics, or they expect it to be the adult novel to be the ending because that just makes more sense. It's confusing.
Hmm.
This seems better.
Speaking on the Eye of the Storm comics, they're absolutely essential. Anybody out there that's listening to this, go pick them up, go download them, because you're gonna need to. I mean, you're gonna need to read those before you read Path to Deceit. Because
Yeah, I've been like, I gotta go back and read
huge.
that again.
I went back and read it again because
Yeah,
I
I
started
read it.
reading stuff from Path to Deceit. I'm like, yep, I gotta know more about the Rose. I gotta know more about the Evereni, and there's direct things pulled from that in the book. It's not necessary to read them, but it will definitely
I didn't read it.
definitely enhance your insight when you're reading that book.
Yeah, I mean, a few things, Joel. I mean, I wonder if that wasn't intended to be that way. Kind of things get like publishing got moved around, especially comic book publishing. We know things got moved around. Things have gotten moved around for Phase 2 as well. Claudia Gray's Quest of the Jedi got moved around. We'll get there in a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, I again, this is one of those different experiences and different things. I mean, I was it struck it's such a my completest nerve to have all that interconnectivity and to track a character's growth through different media and different whatnot. So I guess it's a trade-off. Maybe here's what we're talking about, and and it's similar to what Michael Siglin was saying on the Higher Book show, that it is going to be more contained. It's going to be a shorter period of time.
I don't know. I just feel like that kind of stuff just unfair to the consumer who has to buy all this stuff.
So there's that dimension, and that's what I mean. Is it's going to be a trade-off. Like I think we're going to lose something, lose a level of complexity, a level of character depth, but not necessarily if the authors do their jobs and write well, which we know they will. And I mean, I'm halfway through Path of Deceit. You guys have both finished it. Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland have done a fantastic job so far. So I'm already into Marta's story. So I mean, it'll be maybe what we'll gain then is also a sense of clear character development, clear character direction with this. Looking forward to that. And our friend Jordan is just going to want a poster of that, just like I want a poster of this. There we go. All right. So we accidentally talked about Path of Vengeance. I will say the word path again. We're just jumping into the YA novels here. So there's three YA things going on here, at least from the New York Comic Con panel. So Path of Vengeance. Again, that word path. Now that again, I'm halfway through Path of Deceit. The Path of the Open Hand, the Nile symbol. Clearly, I mean, it's not a mystery that the Path of the Open Hand become the Nile, or someone takes over and transforms them into the Nile, and they have the Gaze Electric and all that. Anything more about this word path? Anything more about this cover strike you? Those interesting world between world looking lines on the floor there.
Yeah, the Nameless. I mean, that's a big thing that got peaked at the end of Phase. Well, actually, not even at the end. Like halfway through Phase 1, they became a major plot point. So to see, I guess Phase 2 for the most part is like without giving too much away about what's come out so far, is like it seems like phase 2 is like the explanation. All right, where are these things from?
Yeah.
Like, why haven't the Jedi known about it? What the heck is going on with these things, and how the Niles start? Like,
Yeah.
that's basically what the because we got to talk about the opening crawl a little bit, because the opening crawl
Yeah.
from phase 2 literally has 3 different points. It's like one of the points in the phase 2 opening crawl is about the exploration. It's about the Pathfinder team. It's about the droids that go and ferry information because the communication lines are not developed yet. Another point
Yeah.
is with Marta Row, and then another point is Iram and Arona in a forever war. So you got these 3 separate things, and each one of those, as we just said, relates to a certain medium of the storytelling. So this one is all about these young adult, is all about the Nile backstory, all about the backstory for how the Rows have
Mhm.
kind of dwindled, but also flourished at the same time, and have come across these crazy objects and why they're going after them.
All right, and then speaking of, planets, you didn't name planets. We've been, Chris. Well, Chris, you and I have been to this planet. Literally, not literally, but the magic of Disney. Quest for Planet X,
Yes.
and going to Batu of all places, seen in, of course, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So this is the middle grade series. So yeah, the middle grade. That's the key difference here. That comes April 2023. I guess I haven't mentioned dates yet. So both Cataclysm and Quest for Planet X coming out April 2023. Yeah, I guess because
This is a junior novel.
This is kind of the junior novel, similar to
Test of Courage.
Yeah, Test of Courage.
Yes.
All that stuff.
This.
Yeah.
Oh,
and there's the one that comes out in next week.
Quest, I was lucky enough to read this, and I will say I gave it glowing reviews. Quest for the Hidden City is the best junior novel in the High Republic.
Interesting.
Okay. I said it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Put down the hammer. It's the best one yet. Go read it.
Which is saying something, because those have been pretty great. Those, I keep saying this.
Test of Courage is my favorite. So
yeah, all
Test
the ones
of Courage was amazing too.
Yeah. None of the ones in phase 1 I felt like I was being written down to.
Exactly.
Right? Which is weird.
I felt George Mann did a great job of just like, hey, I am not writing this for a specific audience. This is for anybody that can enjoy it. A good old fashioned action adventure story into the unknown of the Star Wars galaxy. I just love stuff like that.
will there be other junior novels following these characters, or is this the only one? Okay, this is just the one and done.
So this is the second one. The first one comes out, the one Chris was talking about, Quest for the Hidden City. So you got, first of all, I'll say we got the paths, and then we got the quests, and this is Quest of the Jedi, this whole phase, and then the one word Convergence and Cataclysm, probably something else that starts with a C. Just gonna put that out there. Contingency. Oh, wait a minute. So this will be the second one, and then if there'll be a third one, maybe. I mean, here's another thing about the way things are getting shifted around is, are there going to be 2 waves or 3, or are they going to be more spread out? It's starting to feel like there will be 3 waves, but you're saying there'll still be 2?
Yeah, because if there was a third wave, I would think that there's a third adult novel, a third adult, young adult, third middle grade. I think they're just going to space them out. And I appreciate it, because this was my one complaint, purely from a consumer / content creator, is like, they were putting out like 2 or 3 books on the same day. And I was like, guys, just try to separate them at least like 3 weeks so I can get to them. And then I'll have to feel like I'm rushing to get through before spoilers happen and all this crap. So at least I'm happy that they are kind of like delegating, like, okay, we'll give you a couple 3-4 weeks for this one, 3-4 weeks. So we get more of a steady flow rather than just like, letting all the water out of the faucet at once, just like overdrive. What I will say is from what I've seen on YouTube with the official Star Wars The High Republic little animated videos coming out, which are really freaking cool. And from what I'm looking at this, it looks like Planet X is the planet that the Nameless are from.
Interesting.
And you kind of see it in this, comparing the image of that hologram that they have with the image of the planet in their YouTube little shorts they put out.
Interesting.
So that looks like that's Planet X, and that could only mean really bad things if Jedi is going there. So I don't know if Rupert's gonna really make it out alive, because we know what happens when Jedi go anywhere near one of those things.
That's an whole planet of them. I mean, it is just again noticing. This is an aside, noticing that Chris, you and I have been in that place in the background. Just again, the magic of Disney.
And there's
Uh,
also
but the
a
Falcon's
virtual
not
reality
there.
experience
Oh yeah, that's true.
with
That's also
the
connected to that,
Tales
yeah.
from Galaxy's Edge, and there's the flashbacks where you play.
Mhm,
You get to play as a Jedi
mhm,
Padawan
right.
in the same area. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So it's weird to see it without the Falcon. I'll just say that. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, but yeah, kind of just go back on a point. I kind of glad there's this new format. Like, it's weird to me. Like, I feel like some characters work better with the kind of jumping around between the adult, young adult, junior
Mhm,
stuff. But then, like, I also feel like you should kind of have characters that just should stick to one thing. I
mhm,
think they can develop better that way. So, like, and it's sort of weird, especially like, I mean, this is kind of an odd example, but I think it's kind of the only one I can think of that's the most extreme.
sure.
It'd be like having Andor in Rebels, because it's like Andor, this very dark, sophisticated, well thought out show. And then, I mean, I like Rebels, but it's TVY7. It's
Yeah,
TVY7 violence. I
like
don't think
having
you could ever
like
go
the
that
character
far.
Andor in Rebels. You mean?
Yeah, it's like
Interesting.
we kind of like sort
They
of
had
so
Saw
like
Gerrera in
it's.
Rebels,
Yeah,
though.
they had
I mean,
Saw
It's
in
even more
there.
I mean,
extreme.
I had trouble with that too, to be quite honest. I
Okay,
didn't
fair
think Saw
enough.
was
At
as
least you're
good.
consistent, Joe. There we go.
In Rebels compared to he was in Rogue One and hopefully the show. Although I did like his season 4 appearance. I think
Yeah,
Gary Whitta kind of found that balance. So
yeah,
it's just kind of a weird thing. It's like, a character like Saw in Rebels, I don't think you can go as far with him as you think you could. We all know what Saw's truly capable of when he
sure.
doesn't have the TVY7 rating to stop him.
He would have
And I
pulled the
just
trigger on that egg, wouldn't you?
oh yeah, he would.
Sorry.
He would have. And I feel like with High
Yeah.
Republic, I'm sure there are characters who can jump around and all that, like
Mhm.
a Luke Skywalker could and
Yep.
all that. But at the same time, I do feel like, maybe it is good to keep characters like
Mhm.
Vern in the junior novel so the junior kids can have a 16-year-old to read about.
Yeah.
Instead of then going to the adult novel, like, well, this is too hard to read because they're still only 5
Hmm.
or however old junior novels are. I mean, we're
Yeah,
20s and 30s, so we can read all the levels, but
Yeah.
My
the
only thing is like
accessibility.
it feels more separated unless they could have the same event going on. Then it does
Mhm.
feel like, oh, are we in the same High Republic? Because like we don't see anybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a they like at least they make reference at the end of Quest for the Hidden City. There's a reference to the Convergence novel. So I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We're still in the
Mhm.
same galaxy, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, Joel, if I can kind of maybe interpret what you were saying here, the events themselves can cross over.
Oh yeah.
Just the characters. I mean, again, if we're talking about if this is the planet of the Nameless,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, that's a crossover too with the Nameless, and especially to have such a scary, foreboding thing in a young reader novel. I mean,
I
I
think
will,
certain things can work.
yeah,
I'm just talking like starting to grasp on to like a
yeah.
through line.
Interestingly, I mean, the thing is, maybe this is because they're both for younger audiences younger than adults. I mean, Vern, for example, she shows up in
Just the courage.
Test of Courage, which is a junior reader, and then her main story is in the Justina Arrow, same author, but that young adult novel, out of the shadows, right?
Yeah,
I didn't like that
Yeah,
much. Gotta be honest, did not like
I
Out of the
I
Shadows.
love that one.
I
Okay,
did not like that one at
fair
all.
enough. Interesting, and I mean I love Vern's character. Okay, I mean so maybe we're getting to subjectivities here, and that's part of the thing. Yeah, I mean okay, to each their own, and maybe maybe I'll be convinced at the end of phase 2 because like all these reveals, my mind is still blown by how amazing everything is. But yeah, I mean maybe this seem what I guess I hear you guys saying is that this is a bit of a course correction on that. Um, on what that much level of intertwining in phase 1. They are tightening the story, and a tighter story, a clearer story is often a better thing. I mean, that's maybe the thing that people accuse Tim Zahn of or Chuck Wendig of. I know that's a whole can of worms there, but
Ah.
yeah, I think we should move on. Still with YA though, they're putting together a crew. Speaking of going all over the place, going all the way through, and all the authors coming together to write this YA anthology that is going to be every phase. including Phase 3. And so I mean, I'm hoping they finish Burry's story. They tell us what the heck happened with him. Including Phase 3. This is in July, so this will be a lot later than the rest of Phase 2. It seems like it's going to bridge things, because we need a temporal bridge between Phases 1 and 3.
Yeah.
And then get some things in the backdrop. So, yeah, what do you guys think of this anthology? This is a new thing for High Republic. It's not a new thing for Star Wars. But I mean, well, I'll put it to you. So, have you guys read any of the other, like the Clone Wars anthology, Jedi and Sith, and what do you guys think of this idea here?
Yeah, Clone Wars anthology was not good in my eyes because it was literally just like reading the episodes.
Sure, that's a retelling. Yeah,
There was one story called Bugs about the Dathomir
yeah.
witches. Other than that, I was like, oh, this is literally just
Mhm.
the same story. But then they did the Jedi and Sith, and I was like, yeah, this is more my style. Like we're getting like terrifying battle droids with Obi-Wan and Anakin. We're getting some like really meaty stories about some of these characters like Qui-Gon Jinn and all. So it's like, yeah, this is great. And of course, you can't go mentioning anthologies without talking about, from a certain point of view, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back. Oddly not even uttered at the convention was the Return of the Jedi, which we know it's the 40th anniversary.
They got to do that. They got to do it.
There's still time. There's still plenty of time.
Yeah.
Especially considering it'll probably be out in like fall, so they got plenty of time to announce that probably Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really liking what you were saying as like the temporal thing of telling how does Phase 2 go into Phase 3 or whatever. They were saying, and even things like the synopsis I read for Edge of Balance President, it says something about Arkoff dwells on his past to learn about what's to come. So like I think a lot of these stories could be giving us, even in Daniel Jose Older's book, which sets up Phase 2, the young adult novel, the Midnight
Horizon, which I also love.
Yeah, Yoda said literally like we have to delve into our past to find out about our future's existence or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be like, I think by the end of Phase 2, like a lot of these like latter stories will start like being, we'll have a lot of those aha moments where it's like, this is why they're going back. Like we're figuring out where this is gonna go, foreshadowing for Phase 3. And I think a lot of these anthologies would be good, but it's cool. It's like it's a hit list. It's like, okay, everybody gets their chance, and the fact that these are spread out from all the different phases is a really nice idea because it gives you a lot of like, just I hope my character shows up in one of these or something like that.
Yeah. One thing I will point out here is every single one of these authors has written something kind of young adult, if not full on young adult, except for the fellow at the bottom there. I've never seen him write anything young adult. All his comics are, his novels are fairly complex. His comics are definitely a lot darker. His indie comics are rated R or at least PG-13 or whatever. And so it'll be interesting to see he's writing this and with his daughter today. Or I mentioned last week I had no idea he had a kid.
Me neither.
Writing a kid's book, like the little card kids books from Phase 1. Also about Burry and Yoda, I think. And so, but also, I believe set during Phase 2, probably. So it'll be interesting to see, how Charles does with first name basis with young A. I'm sure he'll be fine. Well, I guess he did a story in the High Republic Adventures. Annual. He did that one.
Annual number 1, yeah.
But other than that, So, anyways, Joel, what do you think of this? Just this idea of doing an anthology, and anything that strikes you?
Oh, I think it's brilliant. I think High Republic is made for anthology. Like, if anything, I kind of wish High Republic would be more anthology. It's a whole era of Star Wars, 200, 300 something freaking years.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like. It's cool to have this ongoing story, but like, really embrace the anthology. This is a whole era to explore of just different people doing wild things. I think this is what D&D games were made for, man. And this is where I think the High Republic should thrive even more, with just a big anthology thing of all these different stories kind of all happening like something kind of might intertwine them all, but I think sometimes having a little bit less intertwining and more just
Yeah.
this is the era of the High Republic. What's going on? That
Mhm.
I think is more fascinating and interests me.
I mean, I can see them using a framing device. I mean, that's they have and they haven't in different examples. I mean, I think that Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy,
Mhm.
Legends of Luke Skywalker, that had a framing device, and some other anthologies like the Galaxy, not the Galaxy, yeah, the Galaxy's Edge, and the Galactic Star Cruiser comics had framing devices. So this might have something that is more than just a device, or it might not. It might be just here's 9 stories. Enjoy. Moving on. Speaking of Charles, and yeah, again, first name is I guess not. I want to talk about the Blade, and I got a lot. The Marvel's The Blade, and I don't mean the Blade. I don't mean Blade. The what's the thing teased at the end of Eternals? That thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But the Blade, Mr. Porter Engel, Mr. Master Porter Engel, 4-issue run, pretty sweet team of Charles Soule and Marco Castiello. 4-issue run that starts December 28th. And Castiello, he's done a bunch of Legends comics. He did partner with Soule. This is why the name sounded familiar. He did do the art for Star Wars number 19 from last December. So, again, it's stuck in my brain. Here is, I'll get that out of the way. That is incredible issue variant for issue number 4 by Mike McCone, featuring Porter Engel in his very stylish lightsaber in all his Phase 2 glory. And Chris, you have a quote from the tweet. You quoting Charles Soule. The Blade catches up with Porter Engel. He's only focused on the saber exclusively, and we'll see lightsaber combat we've never seen before. He's accompanied by his sister Barash, and you
I don't
exclaim,
know if it's actually his sister now.
Yeah, I was
don't
wondering
think
about
it
that.
is. Sorry.
I mean, could be like spiritual sister. Clearly, there's
I
something
think so,
about
like sister
yeah.
in the Force or something like that.
Yeah, so it says they have a bond, and of course the origin of the Barash vow. You can see Leniel Francis Yu, who has done
Ooh.
lots of other comics. This is Barash, and there's concept art also from the High Republic show. Yeah, and this variant this is Leniel Francis Yu's variant for number 3. That was revealed in the High Republic show. I mean, two things. Like, he's holding his lightsaber like that. He's gonna singe his back. But he's freaking Puerto Rico. He's the Blade of Bardota. He knows what he's doing. Also, I need that lightsaber toy right now. I need it yesterday. Anyways, Barash, very just her appearance, for everything from her appearance to trying to get conceptual here. Everything we know about the Barash vow that Charles Soule, of course, created for his Darth Vader comic. Everything yearning for peace, becoming a hermit, named after her. And she definitely has this very calm, peaceable, all white hair demeanor. But as we know, the like you again, quoting you again, the Office of the Frontier. So there's this Office of the Frontier. First of all, they go and petition the Jedi for aid. Porter responds to a call that focuses on a large conflict. I'm guessing either Delna or Iram Arano. And Kristen Maver added on the show that Porter and Barash use their Jedi powers to protect people on the frontier. So clearly they jump in. Barash's appearance notwithstanding, she clearly jumps in with Porter, and they have this bond. And I'm really curious to see. I mean, this is one of those, like all of the High Republic, how you get from there to here. How do we get from someone who is willing to jump in to the action to taking and developing this new tradition in the Jedi Order of recluding yourself, recusing yourself from the galaxy in order to, and from the Force in a way, or just to meditate on the Force and not to actually take up your blade. That's really compelling to me. I want to know what this Office of the Frontier is. Is it based on Coruscant? Is it somewhere else? It's got to have something on Coruscant. And how they relate to the Jedi. Why are they immediately going to the Jedi? We know in Phase 1 there is Senator. I got his name in my mind. Senator Tiatoon is all
Yeah.
about no, these planets have to defend themselves and have to take care of themselves. We can't rely on the Jedi so much. I'm interested in just delving into more about I mean, we see this in Phase 1. We see this in the late Republic era, where the Chancellor sends Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to Naboo to negotiate this treaty, or even sending Obi-Wan to Takodana, or not Takodana, to Cato Nemoidia to get into some business. This whole relationship between Jedi and Republic, especially in this period where things aren't as consolidated, things aren't as clear. What is this Office of the Frontier doing? I gather it's under the purview of the other chancellor, who is from Coruscant, or no, maybe it is Greylark. She's the one from Coruscant who cares more about the Outer Rim, and then there's the other chancellor who's from the Outer Rim and cares more about the core. That whole thing. So there's that, and I believe, this is my last comment, I promise. Again, Porter Engle, the Blade of Berdota.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to character here. How does he get from there to here? How does he get? I mean, part of that's just age and experience and time, and bodies changing over time. Filling out his story. We first meet him as this old Akrukian cook on the Nephrona outpost, but he sounds like he's got lots of stories to tell. He is everyone in that outpost, down to Bell, and everybody respects him as the Blade, this legendary swordsman. How does he? I mean, it's not that he sheds that, but clearly he goes from this man of action to making a great stew in his old age, and so he takes action in Phase 1. That's true too, but so. I mean, I had a lot to say about this because I'm so stoked. I mean, it's a Charles Soule story. I want to read every page Charles Soule writes. I should actually get his indie novels too, but this is his main contribution. He's not writing a novel or anything for this. This is basically it for him with Phase 2. Just realizing that now. What do you guys think of that? What do you think of the fact that, I mean, he's busy with other parts of Star Wars and other things going on. He's got 2 indie comics on the go. But what do you think of the Blade as it's set up? Everything I may have mentioned so far, and that this is it for Charles Soule in Phase 2, notwithstanding your short story.
Well, Charles Soule is basically filling a 40-year gap in Star Wars right now. He's a little busy. I mean, he just revealed the way that Luke found out about Death Star 2 and the rebellion as a whole. So that's a story people have been wanting for years. Years. So he's a little busy. And I think that they seriously, just a quick aside, I think they brought in a lot of these new authors to kind of like hold the torch for the primary group, as they're probably writing Phase 3 right now, as a way to keep the High Republic going every year. They didn't want to have a gap, so I think a lot of the architects of the High Republic are acting more as support roles. That's why we see like Tessa Gratton paired up with Justina Ireland, like more of a support role, so they can work hard on Phase 3, so it can come out like. So they'll have basically like a whole year or something to work on Phase 3 before it comes out. But anyway, talking about the Blade, this is my favorite. This is my most anticipated anything for Phase 2, especially after hearing about this panel. What got me really excited was Charles Soule describing Porter Engle, the Blade of Berdota, as a one-of-a-kind Jedi, because he does not care really about the Force techniques of force push or force pull or whatever, like force technique. He puts 100% of his time into the technique of the lightsaber, that and only, to the point where he has to actually have, or that not has to, but he chooses to have Barash as like the person that's going to use more of the traditional force powers, like force heal and force push. I don't know if she's actually going to use force heal. I'm just giving examples. Like she is like more of the sage and he's more of the warrior. So I like that whole idea of like a pair of Jedi going around the galaxy, both like helping out each other's weaknesses, but like strengthening their own, makes them as like a perfect duo. That's going out there in the office of the frontier as these people. They're basically almost like a bounty hunter guild, from what it seems like. It almost seems like how Mando reports to Grief Karga to get missions. It's basically the same thing. From what
They're
I
not like a
gathered.
Republic department, or
I'm
they,
not
are
sure. They could be a Republic department, but they're all the way out there in the outer rim. So
Yeah.
it's like they'll show up and they'll be like, "Hey, you guys got any jobs for us? Anybody in need? Anything?" Like, "Oh, we got this thing over on Bardota. You want to go check it out?" Like, okay, cool. Like that's how that kind of acts for me. But like again, like what I like about Charles Soule is he always finds ways of integrating his previous stories with like his newer stories. So the idea that we're like retroactively getting the origins of the Barash Vow, which was one of the most exciting things in that Star Wars Darth Vader run from 2017 or whenever it was published. It's like, oh, we got this guy that basically didn't have a clone trooper regiment because he took this vow to go out somewhere to just like cut ties with the Jedi Order. So it's this cool kind of like, all right, how's this gonna end up where she's all alone, basically, because that's probably what's gonna happen. Maybe.
I mean, and of course, Porter on Afrona. I mean, we first encountered him in Charles Soule's Light of the Jedi. So there's that tie, of course. A lot of play with light and dark in this cover, at least. Very yin yang. You know, because I think she has a black belt there, but everything else for her is white. Porter's here. He's in the shadow. He has this vest. He has a much darker hair than he will, of course, later. Yeah. I mean, again, age, it happens, but there's also this visual representation of that. Joel, we've talked a lot about the Blade. I don't know whether or not you're going to give it a shot, but what do you think? How do you feel about this story?
It seems cool. I mean, don't really read much of the comics, to be honest, or at least the High Republic comics. Don't want to buy them. Can't find them. It seems cool though. I'm curious to see how it all works together.
Yeah, I mean, they're good.
Oh, I just like how it's nice and concise. It's just 4 issues. Like we've seen how well Charles Soule does with like those quick, not quick, but like this concise stories. Like I loved his 4 issues of The Rise of Kylo Ren. I think it's still one of the easy recommends I tell people to go read if they're not knowing where to start with comics and they like the sequel trilogy. Like they like what's going on with Kylo Ren. Like you got to pick up this book because it gives you like his whole origins basically in 4 issues. And Anakin and Obi-Wan, the Lando miniseries.
Yeah, I was going to say that Lando comic is fantastic.
So he always hits it out of the park when it comes to his they're meant to end basically concisely at only 4 issues. He's going to pack in as much detail, as much plot progression in each one of those issues that you're going to want to read the next one like instantly. I
mean, like we go back and forth with Eye of the Storm. Again, that's a great example too. Just,
of course,
just 2 issues in that. I've mentioned his indie comics. 8 Billion Genies is, I mean, it's rated PG-13ish, but it is so perfectly planned out and plotted out, and you already know the math of it, but the way he uses that to structure, and that's his original indie creator owned, making his own sandbox. But I mean, that's probably his biggest strength is. Well, no, it's all his biggest strength. Sorry. I mean, I was gonna say his biggest strength is payoff and setup and payoff, and his ability to plan and plot things out and then execute it in a way that actually really draws you along. Like whenever I'm reading one of his comics, I forget that I'm reading a comic. I feel like I'm just locked into the story. So, I mean, hopefully libraries have it. I mean, obviously we want to support the artists and the creatives, but there are also other ways. If financially it is a hardship to find these books, hopefully, and then go to Outer Rim Transmissions where Starrapter, where Chris will tell you the story and then give his thoughts, and then to the Tractor Beam, I will give my thoughts. And little plug there. I thought I'd go there. All right. I mean, Joel, I'll throw this out to you again. I mean, do you have any more thoughts on so far everything we've talked about so far. We do have a little more to go, believe it or not. But yeah.
There seems like there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I just hope it doesn't get confusing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Hopefully it's pretty. Yeah. So good.
I gotta say, just the artwork. I love the look of Blade of Bartita. I was making a joke, and I wasn't the only one on Twitter when I first seen him with his hood down. I was like, "Hey, it's Hellboy in Star Wars." He's got like
That's true.
carved off horns, but I like his ensemble,
Mm-hmm.
and you could see like this guy trains. Like this guy has a really good physique, and the way that his actual uniform is with. It almost looks like in this image, it almost looks like he's got like a Han Solo type of vest going on, although it is kind of like his. But like I like the V-neck. I like just the muscularness, of all of him. Just like, this guy trains constantly physically. Like he should look like he's freaking Hercules. Like, he's gonna wreck you if you come across.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the whole thing about just his singular focus on lightsaber combat. I mean, Dooku does do the other stuff, but I mean, it seems like kind of that kind of vein of just really working to be a master swordsman to the point where he could even train a droid to or whatever Grievous is to be a swordsman. It seems something like this. I mean, also the fact that they the two need each other, the light and the dark. I mean, I don't want to get into that. I don't fully subscribe to the whole gray thing, but here, I mean, I don't know if Porter's necessarily tapping into the darkness, but he's still, and that's not what I mean, but there's still something, the blade, the knife edge, the violence that I mean leads Barash to say to hell with this, to Malachor with this. I'm going for the full on peaceable pacifist route. Okay, we do got to get on to some more reveals. Just a bunch that I'm going to go through. The slideshow is almost done. We're getting there. High Republic Adventures is coming from Dark Horse. Also, November 30th, Daniel Jose Older, etc. We have you quoted, Sav, this young Sav, who we meet in High Republic Adventures in Phase 1. But she's 15 here, and she is sick to death of the Jedi. She's more interested in what Maz is doing across the lake on Takodana. Also, huge reveal here. James Dillon is going nuts here. Dexter Jetster and Therm Scissorhands kicking butt and taking names or whatever it is they're up to. Shout out to the world's, the internet's biggest Dexter Jetster fan, who we should have on this podcast sometime. That Dex. I mean, Dex. This guy keeps showing up in Padawan, in Kirsten White's Padawan, of course. When he meets Obi-Wan, and then he has an important role in Brotherhood. He's going and kicking butt, taking names with Therm Scissorhands, of course.
That is such a Daniel Jose Older thing.
It is.
Is to have Therm Scissorpunch, like the most obscure character that you'd find on like a Denny's promotional solo card that you would go from getting like a pancakes or something like this.
Yeah. There we go. I mean, now that you mentioned that, I'm kind of surprised that Daniel Jose Older didn't invent the name Therm Scissorhands. It's the kind of thing. The guy who made up Buckets of Blood. I mean, he didn't make it named after his friend, but still, Therm Scissorhands. That's probably why he brought him in. It's for the name, right? Good old Daniel Jose Older, who has a way of telling really moving, wonderful stories for young readers in packaging it. Also, High Republic Adventures, The Nameless Terror by George Mann. That comes out December 28th. Again, the Nameless in kids' stories. I mean, they don't pull punches here. I mean, they have to a little bit. But just like Quest for Planet X, as we mentioned. And then Claudia Gray's Quest of the Jedi one-shot with art by Fico Ossio. That comes out February 8th. And we do have the cover there. This is the one shot, the titular one shot. Look at that. And so there's that. I can't quite make out who those characters are. Except Joel, I have a weird question for you. In the bottom right there. So we got the mention. This is just me going nuts here. I don't know if this is true at all, but we had the mention of a certain Legends ancient species in Andor. Mm-hmm. Those kind of look like Rakatans, kinda. Is that at all possible?
Nah, they'd be dead. Cotton should be dead.
Well, I think
Cotton.
in Legends, sure, but why not canon?
Well, I don't know, but I mean,
Am I,
I
am
don't
I
think those
going? Am
are
I going off the
Cottons.
deep end there? I'm off
Yeah,
the
they
deep
don't.
end off this watery wave here.
Well,
I guess.
no, well, their eyes should be more spread out for one thing.
Their eyes
so-
would be like down on their head, kind of like off as stalks. Like they have
Yeah,
like
like-
eye stalks that like
Okay.
come off of their head, and it's like lower, and they have like the large craniums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, or maybe they look almost like that species that Anakin in the Clone Wars, the 2D Clone Wars, those encountered there. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. They look like something out of Legends for sure.
But
me, at
I
least.
mean, the whole idea of Claudia Gray describing this again
Mhm.
as one of the things that was getting me hooked and anticipating High Republic. This is our Arthurian tale of like these two Jedi just going out, taking care of business out there in the Outer Rim. Like this is again, I'll say it's like a straightforward. I don't know if it's gonna be straightforward, but I want a good old like straightforward like Jedi action one shot comic, and I feel like we're gonna get that here.
Yeah, like you said, it is a one shot, which again we haven't had in High Republic. The closest we had was the Storm Visions. I mean, Star Wars just doesn't do one shots all that much, usually because they want to tell longer, more detailed stories, I guess. But and the more, I guess maybe it's hard to do character driven stories. I mean, we talk about the K2 Cassian one shot that people just don't like. The 3PO one shot that fills in a story in Before Force Awakens about the Red Arm. That one I love, and that one I think is pretty universally beloved. So I mean, it's Claudia Gray though, so I mean she's up there with Charles Soule, and Dave Filoni and them. So I mean looking forward to that. A few more, if I get this up here, a few more things to talk about. As you mentioned, Chris, you mentioned Edge of Balance precedent quite a bit here. So Daniel Jose Older and Tomio Ogata. That's releasing next May, and you mentioned it includes a younger Arkoff, and that continues this trend that we saw with Sav, with Porter, younger characters or characters of long-lived living species that we see show up in Phase 1, also showing up in Phase 2 because they just can. I think that Burry Yoda kids book with the souls. I mean, we don't know when that's set, but it probably could be set in Phase 2. I mean, I guess Burry would have to be I guess maybe Burry's too young.
Like the only thing with Matthew with that is like, why is it taking him 150 years that he's not a Jedi Knight yet?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So who knows? But there are a few others that are, and I'll get back. So the High Republic show on YouTube, they show concept art for Sav, for Barash, and I'll just leave that right there. Joel, you named it the Year of Yaddle. And she's gonna have impact. She's gonna talk. She's gonna do even more than she does in Tales of the Jedi. I hope, because Tales of the Jedi is a lot shorter. I hope we really dive into this character who has been criminally ignored for the last 23 years or however long since Phantom Menace came out. Joel? I'll throw it to you. What do you think Yaddle is going to get up to? Are you excited how excited are you to see Yaddle actually have a story?
Oh, it's going to be very fascinating. Like, because Yaddle is just Yoda with a wig. That's what they do. It's like, put the wig on her. People call her Yaddle. Genius. George genius.
It is kind of genius in the moment, but
it's like, what are they gonna sound like? Will they do the backward talk, or is that just for Yoda? It's like it's another Yoda. How many other Yodas are there in the galaxy? At least in Star Wars.
There's Yoda, there's Grogu, and there's Yaddle.
Exactly.
So Chris, what do you think of Yaddle having a prominent role? What do you think of any of these things I've mentioned in the more reveals section here?
Yeah, so actually, she has spoken. I believe it was in the Rising Storm, written by Cavan Scott,
All right.
and that was first a real where she doesn't speak in backwards talk. So it's our first like Yoda species character. It's not beholden to speaking that way. So very cool to see, just to know more about her. I tweeted about this. I think it's in Lydia Kang's novel, right? Did I say that? Cataclysm, I think she's in.
Maybe.
So
I don't
maybe,
know.
yeah, I believe she's going to be in Cataclysm. So, so I guess she's going to have a prominent role. So that might be our Jedi character we're following. So there could be a
Yeah.
lot of cool things revealed about her. I don't think they'll go into what planet she's from or anything of that magnitude, but it could be cool to see if she has like any dealings with Yoda as far as like, are they related or what's going on there, or even how old is she? Because I don't even know if we know how old she is.
I mean, I think doesn't she talk, or Joel, maybe you said they, I don't know the gender, but
He never talks. I don't.
yeah. Well, in Legends, in Emissaries and Assassins, or like Emissaries to Malastare, but she talks in the backwards talk too, and she's basically Yoda
Oh,
with a wig, I think, and so that's Legends, so that can be undone. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's it for her in Legends. So yeah, great to see more happening on. Okay, gonna sit on that. Um, there we go, and then lastly, Trials of the Jedi. This is again, Chris, you reporting here that they were saying be November 2023. So yeah, like you're saying, yeah, okay, that fits with just the two waves, but spread out. So for November 2023, Chris, what do you think of that time frame? You've mentioned a little bit of it, but yeah, time frame, and how are you looking forward to where it goes further?
Oh yeah, phase 3 really cool. That we're getting that almost a year after phase 2, 13 months after phase 2.
Mhm.
Makes a lot of sense because, as I said, the other writers, I feel like the original architects are probably supporting more in phase 2, and so they can be given even more. So now they'll have like a year and a half really to crack out their stories, get into it, get into characters. Very curious to see. Like I said, sure we'll see a lot at Star Wars Celebration. They'll probably like reveal the first novels or something. Very curious if this will be the last phase or they'll see how good phase 1 really like got all those books on New York bestsellers. Everybody was talking about it. They have panels at conventions that aren't Celebration
Right.
now because it's that popular. So maybe they're thinking, hey, maybe we'll keep this going. Let's do phase 4 in
Yeah.
November or 2024 or something like that.
Or, well, that'll be interesting. Yeah, because it's later than usual. Everything's gotten pushed back. Like, because phase 1 was in January 2021. Phase 2 is October 2022. November 2023. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, who knows when phase 4 would be, or maybe they. I mean, that's the thing is. I mean, they told us, Light of the Jedi, Quest of the Jedi, Trials of the Jedi. That's what they said way back when. It was going to be just 3 phases. I mean, the thing, it could be a complete story. Maybe they take a break after, and then, or something, or Joel, to your point that you make a lot of times, this is an era. It's not just a publishing initiative. Yeah, Joel. I mean, what do you think of, first of all, of phase 3 coming a whole year out, even later? I mean, because the latest story we have is this YA anthology. It's coming out in June or July. Let me back up here with my notes here. When is it coming out? That comes out in July, and then go from that until November. What do you think of that? And then what do you think of the possibility of phase 4? What they might do afterwards?
Wait, did they announce a phase 4 or?
No, but
Oh,
we're just wondering if they will or if they won't. But
I don't know. This seems like they really have set it on 3 phases, then we out.
Okay.
Which is probably what will happen.
Yeah.
I do think phase 3 should be the biggest. I mean, because it's like if phase 2 can be the smallest, phase 3's got to be like, let's wrap it up, people. It's our last big hurrah. Of
maybe it's
whatever
4
this.
waves.
Oh
That's
yeah.
true. So that's what my thing. I probably they go out with a big bang. Because obviously this is where it's all setting up to, and people want to get back to those lost threads in phase one that some people don't think were fully settled upon. So, yeah, that's the only thing I can say at the moment. And then Acolyte's coming, though. Who knows if that has anything to do with anything? So,
yeah, it's true. I mean, yes, the end of the High Republic era, or whatever that means. Yeah. So,
right. Well, if the Acolyte would probably come out, I'm guessing 2024. So,
yeah.
That's my big guess.
Which would fit. I mean, maybe that is the one kind of tie-in. Maybe, I mean, it would be amazing. I'd lose my mind if it had the High Republic banner in there. It probably won't.
Oh wow, that'd be crazy.
It probably won't, but you know me.
I think it'll run phase 3 is going to be going on while the Acolyte releases at this point. Definitely.
You think so?
Phases last at least a year, and I don't think they're going to wait like a whole year just for the book series to be done with. I mean, think about it. It'll be a brilliant tie-in if they mention like, oh, remember the Nile attack on the Starlight Beacon? People are going to be like, people like me are going to make these videos on YouTube, be like, hey, you hear something cool? Well, here's an entire initiative you can read right now, and I have an entire playlist about it on my YouTube channel. You can learn all about it. I'm going to love that. I'm going to probably see all this traction on my videos just going up instantly. Like, yep.
Yeah, I mean, or just the kind of thing of you want to read more, you want to learn more about this event that they mentioned. Here's the Fallen Star. Here's the Rising Storm. Right. I mean, here's the thing: is if there were a story, if there were a Disney Plus show to do that, it would be this one. It would be, it would be this showrunner Leslie Headland, who I think she is reading all these books. I think she's the one who really cares.
I don't think the Acolyte has anything to do with High Republic outside of it's the era. It's technically the era, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but it's Leslie Headland. I mean, she's the opposite of Tony Gilroy.
Tony Gilroy is more of a honestly. Tony Gilroy, he's doing better fan service than Dave Filoni does it. Honestly.
Oh sure, yeah.
And I think Tony Gilroy's done more research than Dave Filoni has done.
But
Tony Gilroy's more likely to wrench in a book, I think. Filoni would be.
You're crushing my dreams, Joel. You're crushing my dreams. But again, I think Leslie Headland is the one who would be likely to do it. It's possible.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't. Aren't Avar, Eldar, all of them would be dead by then?
Sure, but
except for Yoda and
we're talking about people referring back, right?
Oh, I mean, sure.
Stellan's dead already, but. Spoiler alert for Fallen Star. Yeah. It's late. I've had a long day, guys. I got up at Chris Abbott hours.
Oh dear.
Oh jeez.
We're starting to get lucid.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that wraps up. Did you guys have any Joel, I'll give you the floor, any thoughts on everything that New York Comic Con Phase 2, even a little bit Path of the Deceit you've read.
Well, I finished it.
Yeah, you finished it.
Did you like it?
Oh yeah, I liked it. Yeah. I thought it was. I'll just say it was very easy to get into for someone who didn't read much of Phase 1. So, thank heavens. So, I was a little nervous about that. So it's like, oh no, I totally get where all this is going. So, very easy to understand.
Yeah, and then everything that we talked about tonight is what's the one thing you might be most excited for?
I'm still excited for that Battle of Jeddah audio drama. Although
we didn't even talk about that.
I mean,
man.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious to see what the adult novel's like and see if maybe if the young adult, the adult novels always like to go a little bit more depth in what the universe is like. So, what's the first adult novel again?
Convergence comes out in a few weeks.
And see how that kind of filters out with passive deceit and like if there's any interconnectivity or they're just doing their own thing. So I'm excited for that. So yeah, I'm curious to try out this young adult and adult novel and the junior one too.
Yes. Chris Starrapter, other than the Blade, what are you most excited for Phase 2, especially of what we talked about today from New York Comic Con?
Well, I'm really interested with Kevin Scott writing a young adult novel.
Yes.
I will be the first to admit, like, the young adult novels in High Republic are not really my jam most of the time. They have stuff happening, like a lot of the romance stuff and all that just doesn't really sit well with me. I it's just not for me, I guess, or something. So for me, I'm excited because I've Rise and Storm is the best book in or anything in all of Phase 1, I think. I was so enraptured with that freaking book. I could not put it down. So I want to see what Kevin Scott is doing next. I've loved what he did with the Marvel issue #1. So this guy is one of the architects. So here we go. I want to see how he's going to pull it all together at the end of Phase 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and other than the Blade, and this is kind of cheating because we've already read issue #1. I'm most excited for where this everything everything to do with Jedi, but especially this High Republic Marvel comic. Definitely looking forward to that. All right, we've done it, guys. We did it. We got
That
through.
was just High Republic.
We didn't do it all. We didn't even talk about the Lucasfilm Publishing bill.
Yeah, I know. We were only gonna do High Republic. Okay, quickly. Fine, go for it. Call an audible here. One thing from the Lucasfilm Publishing, Chris, that you're most excited for.
Oh, it's got to be the Inquisitor, the Return of the Red Blade, or the Rise of the Red Blade. Sorry, by Lila S. Dawson. I mean, come on, we're getting an entire book focused on a character from only 2 issues of Charles Soule's Darth Vader run, and I love these kind of stories where we're not getting a tie-in to an upcoming movie or television series. It's like out of nowhere, Lucasfilm was like, "Hey, we're just going to tell a really cool story about an Inquisitor." So I'm looking forward to the inner workings of this Jedi named Isket, and how she deals with the aftermath of Order 66 and how she gets involved with the Inquisitors, seeing the inner workings of the Inquisitors, all that. I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
Same here. Funny enough, that's my favorite show. That's my favorite book right now. I'm excited for. I was a little surprised at first it wasn't Riva because it sounds very similar.
Yeah.
They all have
That
that.
would have been a tie-in, yeah.
But again, like as you said, Chris, I'm excited it's not a tie-in. I'm glad there's here's a random character that no one knows about. Let's just do a book on them. That's what these books are for. Expanding the universe. Would it be cool to know about Mon Mothma's wedding day? Sure. But you know what? I don't need it. I want to know about this.
I don't want to know about that day. I don't want to know anything about that marriage. Get them to marriage counseling. Sorry. Yeah.
Divorce court.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I'm just excited that we're continuing the trend that Afra started of. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. Continuing the trend that Afra started of paper first characters getting their own paper stories. I mean, I just that's what the Santa book represents to me is this continuation of a character that has brought a new life. She starts as Han Solo's fake wife. So turns out she's Afra's university doctoral fling, but obviously there's more to it than that. And yeah, she's getting her own book there. Yeah, I mean, the fact that is also then with this this Inquisitor who speaking of romance, right? I mean, Vader sees the two hooking up and getting together, and says, nope, not good with that. Attachments. Yeah, interestingly, I wonder if they're going to play on that, right? Play with the fact that the Sith also forbid attachments, and that they forbid it in a great violent way. So we'll see, because we know a little bit about that character, right? We know how she ends. So yeah, I excited for that. What was it like, Chris? While you're here, before we wrap up, what was it like to be in that panel? What was the energy like, and was it pretty packed as well?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of first timers there, like Mark Guggenheim was there. I didn't even recognize the guy at first because I'm so used to seeing the same old face. Not like a derogatory, like a negative thing. Like, oh yeah, used to seeing Delilah S. Dawson, used to seeing these different authors that we see time and time again every year because they're great Star Wars authors, so they keep getting invited to write new stories. But I'm like looking, I'm like, who is that guy? Because I was like not paying attention when they announced everybody. I was like, looked up. Oh, I looked up a Google image. So that's Mark Guggenheim writing the Han Solo Chewbacca book. So it's cool getting him up there. Alyssa Wong was up there for the writer of Dr. Afra, and she was having a blast. It looked like a New York Comic Con. So it was a lot of fun getting all that material. There's a lot of just cover reveals, which is always a fun thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, overall good time. They even revealed some High Republic things that's
Yeah.
oddly enough at the non-High Republic panel.
Mhm.
So they have a lightsaber collection book coming out. They have like an in-universe like encyclopedia, if you will, of the High Republic locations and different
Mhm.
things like that. So yeah, all around good times.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Did Mark Guggenheim address? I mean, maybe that's just us on our little circle, but did he address kind of where this Han book is going? Why?
Yes, he did.
He did address it. Okay, what did he
He
say?
actually like revealed this revelation to us. I was
Okay.
like, holy crap. He's like, yeah, right now we're just dealing with the past, but that jar inside of it is not what you think it is. So
Okay.
he said
Okay.
it will reflect whatever is going on with the jar of the ashes of Jabba's arch enemy or whoever it is gonna be relevant to the current Star Wars storyline.
Okay. Like
And
the Crimson side.
yeah.
Interesting.
And he basically said there's
Oh.
another event coming
Yeah, not
early
Hidden Empire.
next year.
Like not Hidden Empire or something else.
No, something else.
Okay. Okay.
It's like this
yeah.
interminable like event after event after event.
I mean, it is Marvel, to be fair.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the problem with Marvel. Too many events.
Yeah, they do that. That's
Too
yeah.
many.
But
Fair enough.
I'm excited to see where all those stories and
Mhm.
revelations go. We're gonna
Yes.
get to see everybody with the different kind of futures that they will have. Maybe post Return of the Jedi, perhaps. We'll see.
I mean, what the thing that I keep coming back to with Revelations is Mustafar and the Eye of Webish Bog.
Yeah.
Vader with,
So-
and that's got to be a Wayfinder thing happening there, I would assume. Yeah, looking forward to that way if it ever comes when it comes out. It'll come out. Remind me who's writing that book. I'm blanking on who's writing that one.
Mark Guggenheim.
That is Guggenheim. Okay, I thought so. Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. He's writing this one that we're not too sure what's happening,
Yep.
and then he's writing this one shot that's going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting that
be great.
Charles Soule wouldn't be writing Revelations since he is really the architect of this entire post. It was because
Sure.
of him that he pitched the story of like the Star Wars that would branch out into all these other things.
Mhm.
And now it seems like Mark Guggenheim is
Yeah.
getting a lot of
Well,
ground
maybe
to
like
play
a-
with. So it's interesting.
Maybe like a good delegator, Charles Soule, just gonna look from the higher ups and delegate the actual
Yeah.
day to day, so he doesn't get
Yeah.
burned out.
There we go.
I don't blame
Yeah.
I
him.
mean, he
true.
did get his own anthology, number 25, which was pretty great. But yeah.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
But yeah, looking forward to Mark Guggenheim. Yeah, Revelations. Revelations is the correct way of saying that one, not the book of the Bible. It doesn't have an S at the end. Anyway, lots of tangents here. I do think it's good. It's a good time to wrap things up. Thanks everyone for joining with us, sticking it out, watching this, listening. If you liked what you heard or have some thoughts, feel free to add them in the comments. They will always be there. Put them in the comments below. Give this video a like, a share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Chris, Starrapter, where can they find you?
Oh, certainly. Thanks for having me, Matthew and Joel. It's always a pleasure speaking to you guys about the inner workings of the paper canon, as you call it, Matthew. But yeah, you can follow me mainly on YouTube, youtube.com/Starrapter. I just talk about comic books every week relating to Star Wars. I've been doing little companion videos, if you will, that relate to Andor, just some Easter egg videos, things like that, tying into the wider world of Star Wars. And then I have my Outer Rim Transmission podcast with me, my buddies Milton and Ben. We record every Friday around 9 o'clock Eastern. And lately, of course, like everybody else, we're talking about Andor. But like last episode, I had a pretty in-depth, detailed day-by-day experience with New York Comic Con. So if you're interested in hearing about all that, then go over and watch the last episode. It's also available on any podcast streaming app as well. Just search Outer Rim Transmission. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, great having you on as always. And also shout out to Outer Rim Transmissions and everything you do on that channel. Again, kindred spirits here with Iron Canon.
Yes,
I remember being on Outer Rim Transitions and having great conversations with you and Ben. Joel, where can they find you?
You can find me at JID 2021. Again, JID 2021. Where I tweet stuff, and of course also at Ion Canon pod, where I also tweet stuff.
Yes, definitely continuing the conversations, the links, etc. Just as, again, to reiterate, if you want to hear us talk all about Andor with Doc Holocron and Red Leader, we were on there a few days ago, and that is now up on YouTube, and we will link that on our Twitter at Ion Cannon Pod. You can find my Tractor Beam comics reviews every Thursday, likely Friday, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can find this, if you found this here episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you'll find next week's episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. Again, Twitter and Instagram at Ion Cannon Pod. Of course, you can also find our episodes on Twitter. We have the video just right in there, and on Twitch at Ion Cannon Pod. Again, Twitter and Instagram at Ion Cannon Pod and at the SWU. Next week, I will do my darndest to finish Path of Deceit. It's definitely a good night reading when I have to get up at Chris Abbott hours. I should not be watching House of the Dragon before we go to bed. I should read my novels and finish Path of Deceit, because I am enjoying it so far. So hopefully we can I can read it and we can talk about it next week. But until then, an hour 50 in, Chris, Joel, let's blow this thing and head home.